Hello there, and welcome to Brain Health Matters, a series of books, courses, and programs all designed to help you become healthier so your brain can become happier and stronger. I'm Kate Kunkel, and this week's interview is with Dr. Laura Koniver, the intuition physician. I've been a fan of Dr. Koniver for a couple of years now, following closely her work on grounding and her heart-based approach to treating patients. Laura is also an amazing intuitive artist, and for those of you watching this on YouTube, you'll be seeing a couple of pieces of her art here. I believe they express what I see as a true vision of healing, which includes the incredible healing power of the earth and grounding. We'll be right back to learn much more about this readily accessible and essential activity to help you achieve a healthier brain and a happier life.
Brain Health Matters is brought to you by The Musical Brain, Book 3 in the Healthy Brain series. Enjoy the fun and easy practices in this book to improve your memory, sharpen focus, and master your mind with the healing power of music. Available on Amazon everywhere.
Hello, and welcome to Brain Health Matters. I'm Kate Kunkel, and today I'm joined by Laura Koniver. She's an artist, author, holistic physician, and internationally recognized grounding advocate. Koniver's healing artwork has been featured in many news and media outlets, and she's also the author of The Earth Prescription, a hands-on guide that will help you deepen your innate bond with nature and feel vibrantly alive. She's also published a children's book on grounding, From the Ground Up. Laura is a regular contributor to the national organic lifestyle magazine, Mary Jane's Farm, and is featured as an expert protagonist in several motion pictures, including The Grounded, Heal for Free, The Earthing Movie, and Down to Earth. Laura, I'm so honored and excited for you to join me here today.
Oh, yeah, I'm really excited to talk to you. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Oh, yes, of course. And, I've always felt that connection to the earth. I was born and raised in the country, so it's a really important part of my life, always has been. From reading your story, though, it seemed like it came a little bit later for you because you came from a very three-dimensional family, yeah?
Yeah, I'd say that. I mean, I definitely had nature growing up, but then when I entered, the world of medicine, it just, I went to medical school in downtown Philadelphia, Center City, nature wasn't just part of it. And then even when I had my children, of course, I do love nature. We'd go on, little walks and stuff like that. But it wasn't until I really actually realized it took a leap to bring grounding into actual medical therapy and treatment. So yeah, I liked nature, but I just thought, because the sunshine or, I just love bird sounds. And those are all awesome reasons to be outside. But I went through all of medical school and no one spoke of grounding as a healing modality. So it really did take me figuring that out myself and reading the medical literature to bring it into patient care.
So why is grounding so valuable medically?
So it's so weird because we totally recognize that our entire body is electrical, right? We know our heartbeat. Everyone knows an EKG machine measuring your heartbeat, and that's your energy output from your heart. And if we want to rule out stroke or do a brain study on sleep, the electrodes and you do the brain. And so everybody knows, and our muscles, we can test how strong they are by doing an EMG and test muscle strength. So we innately know, we function off of electrical impulse, and I couldn't even be speaking to you. I couldn't even blink without an electrical impulse, but I don't know why that's such a hard leap that this is also a healing modality, because we diagnose disease by seeing if something's wrong electrically. So heart attack, we look at the EKG. Oh gosh, there's something wrong with the heart. Everything about the body we monitor electrically to see if there's something wrong. But our entire body is totally conductive. And so actually applying natural DC energy from the earth is a healing modality that supports how the body functions. But we just haven't put two and two together until very recently. If our body functions off of natural energy, and the earth is a pulsating planet that constantly has a double heartbeat giving us energy. And when we're disconnected and we have all these inflammatory disorders and all these things go wrong when we're insulated in, cars and plastic shoes and stuff like that, and everything's going wrong, it's taken us really veering away from nature to realize that, maybe there was some source of health and healing and support coming in, because we think of all the ancillary things the earth does, like provide fresh oxygen. We know we need to breathe, or water. And of course, we probably usually should filter our water at this point, but we need to drink water or we cannot stay alive. And we need to eat food, hopefully grown from the earth. And so, but the earth itself also the electrical output of the earth itself, and our electrical bodies, they are yin and yang. And the earth could survive without us, but we could not survive without the earth. So knowing that my heart needs energy to beat and my brain needs energy to think, and just for me to even have consciousness, and on and on and on, why would I not use the earth as a battery pack?
I live by the ocean, so I can go out any day
better.
and walk barefoot on the beach.
Yes.
And I've also got the salt air and all of that stuff. And I can tell if I've missed a couple of days on the beach with my bare feet in the sand, I really notice it.
Yeah. And, back before, well, even way before, medical studies on grounding, and where it's now an actual healing modality that we recognize, before we had, antibiotics, or even knew like we should wash our hands because there's, microbiota or whatever, doctors would routinely prescribe time at the seaside when they didn't know what else to do. 2 weeks at the ocean shore because they didn't know what else to do. And that person would be grounded. And obviously it's not a magic panacea, like you can't necessarily reverse all the damage that your body's gone through, but they do know people will feel better if they are grounded by the sea. And so like before we had any options of anything, that's what we did.
Yeah, exactly. And I think they also, when they, there was one pandemic, I forget which one, that they sent people to the ocean as well to get fresh air.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what's the difference then? So I like to go barefoot in the sand or in the grass or whatever, but is there a difference between grounding in nature like that? Mm-hmm. And you recommend that people who can't do that to ground with devices.
Right.
Does it do the same thing for us? And how does that work?
So, I think there's additional benefits to being outside. So that's always first choice. Plus it's freely available. That should be part of our daily routine, as easy as knowing that we need to drink or put our seatbelt on. We should be connecting with the earth if possible outside, but there is such a large percentage of people with mobility issues, or they're recovering from something, and they definitely need the support even more. And so, yeah, or even mental health, agoraphobia or whatever, and it's just not comfortable, or you live in an unsafe area, or you're a female alone and the only time you have is night. And, so there are lots of examples where I did start having eco-friendly grounding tools made so I could provide it to patients who really could not just go outside and ambulate on the earth. So yes, it's all of the benefits in the medical literature are strictly on just grounding, peeling away all the other benefits from being outside, because the double-blind placebo-based studies in the medical literature are on grounding pads. And that's the only way to really make it controlled, because if you want it to be double-blinded, you don't want the participant, the patient, to know if they're actually grounded or not. So they each have a grounding pad with a cord, but some of them are sham grounded and the cord is not actually grounded. And that's how we know, oh, their heart rate changes. Oh, their oxygenation changes. Their cortisol goes down. We know this because we've stripped away all of the other benefits. So, but would I say it's even better to go outside? Yes. But all the benefits I'm going to talk about today about grounding come from just literally grounding through a ground core that's conductive and touching the earth outside. So the electron flow and the electrical exchanges is the same. But there's other benefits to being outside, as you know, the vitamin D and the plant pheromones and just ions and a million other things that we don't even know yet. So I'd say go outside. But if you want to ground for longer, if you're recovering from something, or you cannot go outside and there's no safe spaces, I definitely think there's a role for indoor grounding tools. Yeah.
So tell me what the benefits are that have been proven from this, because this is fascinating. My specialty is brain health. And of course, the brain is all about electrical impulses and how we can not interfere with those. So is that one of the things that grounding helps with?
100%. Like I just knew going into this with the title of your Brain Health Matters that I can spend the entire hour just literally focusing on just the improvements to your brain health. And then, ancillary, we could go through, even your plasma gets grounded, even, what's good about grounding is nothing prevents it. So say you take an antibiotic and you want to absorb it, but your gut health is off and you can't absorb it, and you're still waiting for your circulation to take that antibiotic to an area where there's an infection. And so it takes time and it doesn't always work. And sometimes you need a couple antibiotics and then it messes your whole system up. But grounding, everything's conductive. So even the pus that's in an infection is grounded. Even the scar tissue around the abscess there's no obstacle to it. Everything's grounded, even your bones. So it's immediate. It's like turning a light switch on. Your entire body gets grounded. So there is a healing flow throughout your entire body with nothing impeding it at all, and no waiting for something to absorb or your circulation or time to work. None of it. It's instant. And so, yes, the brain is one of the most responsive organ systems, but they all are. But like if you're trying to balance hormones, that might take a while for the hormones to balance out. But with the brain, like that, studies show that it literally within milliseconds of being connected to the earth, the EEG, the study participants with an EEG on their brain, they switch to the alpha brainwave patterns that you get when you're in restorative sleep or deep meditation, a calm, alert state within a millisecond. So, I mean, it's that instantaneous. It's not, oh, I got to wait for 30 minutes. No, if you only have 2 minutes, please do it for 2 minutes. You will feel better. It will stabilize your mood. It will brighten your outlook. It will calm you, maybe even to the point of preventing a panic attack. That kind of thing is very centering. It's like getting a power nap, but instantaneously. Wow. So that's just one of them. I have a couple other ways that it helps your brain too.
So my focus, of course, is dementia prevention because my mom passed away with dementia. So everything I think about, my brain always goes to how can this technology, this grounding, help someone prevent that then?
Yeah. Okay. Well, there's a couple different ways that grounding really boosts the brain health and, in my opinion, would prevent dementia. And it also, recent studies have shown that it's actually a good treatment for Alzheimer's, improving sleep quality. So immediately your brain goes into alpha brainwaves and is less stressed. Okay. So it's more in a healing state. But then over time, medical studies have shown, double-blind, placebo-based medical studies have shown that the sleep is deeper. And I'm sure you obviously know just from deep sleep that prevents cognitive decline. And poor sleep is directly associated with dementia and other issues. So just by improving sleep, and we know it's the earth, we know it's grounding. In fact, we've known this for a long time. So it's really, I think, irresponsible that this hasn't been like taught in medical schools, because way back, even in the 70s, there were studies, they put people in shielded bunkers under the earth, like in the earth, shielded. And they made them live there for a month. And they did this over and over and over with lots of test subjects, hundreds of test subjects. And the ones that were in these bunkers, they had a light switch, but they didn't have any access to natural sunlight, and they watched their circadian rhythm. And then they had another bunker where it was shielded not just from the light, but actually from the earth's resonance. So it was shielded 99.9% from that Schumann resonance the earth produces and the sun. So you got one without the sun and the earth. The people without the sun maintained roughly a 24-hour period cadence. I mean, some days maybe they'd turn the light, after 20 hours, they'd go to sleep and they'd sleep but it was basically a 24-hour period, maybe say from 20 to a 28-hour period. But the people where the earth connection was cut off, they were every single one of the participants in this study that became completely desynchronized, maybe they'd only be awake for 3 hours, maybe they'd sleep for 18, maybe they'd be awake for 1, it was just totally random. They were all in the one where the earth was shielded. So we know that the earth helps set our circadian rhythm, and more modern studies on grounding, now that we invented grounding tools, have proven that out. So not only does grounding deepen sleep, deepen restorative sleep, which has a host of benefits like dementia and depression and other mood disorders. But then we followed it up with studies on Alzheimer's patients sleeping grounded, and they have a much improved quality of sleep as well, which then translates to higher functioning in the daytime. So it just in the area of dementia alone, sleeping grounded and grounding. And then some of the study with the Alzheimer's, they actually, in that study, they only grounded 30 minutes a day during the day, and it still improved their sleep significantly at night. So even if you don't want to sleep grounded at night, if you just make the effort to go outside for a half hour on the earth, touching the earth, that will improve your sleep that night. And now we know that medically as a fact. So it's really powerful.
I keep thinking of all the people, as you're saying this, Laura, I'm thinking of all the people over the last 3 years who have been basically locked up and away from the earth, and even having access to fresh air. Like my cousin who's in a nursing home because she has very severe MS. Mm-hmm. She did not get to go outside for a year. How, like, what does that do to you mentally and physically?
Yeah, no, that's devastating. And the brain inflammation and no way to release that. Yeah. It's just only going to exacerbate whatever your underlying conditions are. So that is just so sad.
Oh, I just as you're saying that, I'm getting a little sick to my stomach thinking about how
I'm
awful
so sorry.
that is.
But the positive news is, if even an indoor grounding tool for people who can't go outside is beneficial. And then even short periods of time outside, like literally even if you're just sitting outside, even in a wheelchair, and you hold onto a leaf of a tree and you only do that for 2 minutes, your brain did go into a healing state for those 2 minutes. So even it might feel overwhelming, like, oh, I got to do it 24/7 or I'm, but actually think of it as a positive thing. If I do it for a second, it makes a difference. If I do it for a half hour, it makes a difference. If I sleep, this is just introducing a it's like if you're drinking contaminated water and you're getting sicker and sicker, and then finally you get fresh water, and it's an improvement. It's nothing to be scared about, but we can definitely improve health with it.
Exactly. So you mentioned touching a tree. In one of my programs, I teach people who are in North America or somewhere where it gets cold and they can't put their feet on the ground, that hugging a tree with your bare hands, right? You want to touch the tree with your hands. I figure that must be grounding. Is that right?
It is. There's a few instances to be aware of, because when trees are turned into lumber and they're totally dried out, like a wooden deck or a patio, picnic, they're not grounded because you need moisture. So I have tested hundreds, if not thousands of trees. If a tree is covered in very thick, very dry bark, the bark will be like an insulation around it. But if you can get to thinner branches with thinner bark, or you have well moisturized hands, or it just rained, or even in the driest condition, a leaf or a flower or anything that has its own moisture, that you'll be instantly grounded. And I definitely recommend hands. And even in urban settings, it's much safer to use hands than, I don't take my shoes off in a downtown city. So thinking hands, even standing there waiting to cross the road, and there's a metal pole like that you press the sidewalk, to walk across. I put my hand on that pole, and I have repeatedly tested that with a ground test meter. And because it's metal and it's anchored into sidewalks, which sidewalks are also grounded, you ground. So touching metal poles or things that are like anchored into the ground or into a sidewalk. And then another like solution I have for cold is, because sidewalks and cement and concrete are grounded if they're poured on the earth. So I've discovered my own garage is grounded. So in the winter, it helps it's still outside, it's still cold, but it's a sheltered place. And I have a little chair and I read a book, and sometimes I put a space heater, and I can be grounded in my garage. So going to a park, say you're in a public inner city and it's just not really safe to go barefoot in the grassy areas. But if you're in a park pavilion and it has a cement flooring and you're eating your lunch, or your kids are playing at the playground, you can slip off your shoes possibly there and just put your feet on concrete or cement and be grounded. So yeah, definitely do it safe, but definitely think hands, especially in the winter. And there's even conductive gloves. You don't even have to expose your skin anymore. There's conductive gloves that you can wear. I have a conductive hiking stick so that it's still through your hands, but keeping your shoes on.
Oh, so, brilliant. I love that. Yeah. Oh, I'm going to have to learn more about that, because I have, I'm from Canada and I have a lot of people there who say, I can't.
And there's stickers you can put on your shoes that ground your ground your shoe. So it goes from the bottom where your shoe is on the earth, and it's a sticker that goes then into where your foot is. And so it's like you're barefoot, just from this little conductive pathway. So there's a lot of ways to get grounded while you multitask. That's the goal, right? Because most people aren't going to say, well, I'm not going out for 30 minutes. Are you kidding me? It's all I can do to get the kids in bed for the school the next day, or whatever it is,
Right.
I mean, my life is crazy. So it is generally a multitasking situation. I'm eating lunch, so I'm going to take it outside. I'm going to do my physical therapy stretches, so I'm going to go outside. Or I'm even just weeding through emails on my phone, so I'm going to do it outside. Or I'm going on a walk to walk the dog, so I'm going to have the stickers on my shoe, because that is the only time I really do go outside. So if you can multitask, that's always a good thing.
Perfect. Now, besides grounding, which is so important for our health, you did a recent blog about the fourth leading cause of death. I think it was just the last couple of days it came, your medicine cabinet.
Yes, yeah.
So what do you mean by that? Because to me, it seems that medication interferes with most things going on in our body and can actually create issues, even though it's supposed to be helping.
Right.
When you say the fourth leading cause of death, what does that mean?
It really does mean that in America, it is literally the fourth leading cause of death: drug to drug interactions, and drug mistakes, anaphylactic reactions to drugs. Like when we do a medical study, and this is how you're supposed to do it. Just like I talked with the grounding thing, you just remove one variable so that you've distilled it to that variable. So in a medication, though, you typically have somewhat healthy individuals who are on no to little medication. So you can test that one medication. You don't really have someone on 35 medications and then figuring out what it and they're older, so their renal function is decreased and their muscle mass is decreased, so their metabolism is decreased. And now you're adding the 37th medication. In that situation, even though in the controlled studies, adding that medication actually was helpful for blood pressure or whatever it was, but in real life, in a complex patient who has so many other medications, we don't really have a way to test that. So we're basing it off of a pure experience, a gold standard. And then in real life, it's actually not helpful. So some medications, which would be helpful if that was the only issue in the gold standard, when it's added to an array of medications, for example, especially as we age, if it's sedating to me, and now I'm going to go on an antidepressant because I feel depressed and I'm not sleeping well. And so now I have an increased risk of dementia because I'm not getting restorative sleep, and I've got inflammation in my body because I'm stressed out and I'm feeling groggy. And it's because I'm on 5 medications that the side effects for all of them are fatigue. I honestly would probably be better for my quality of life to reconsider if I can even just going down, if not off of 1 or 2 of them, all of a sudden I feel better, as opposed to adding an antidepressant and then drinking more caffeine. Do you know what I'm saying? So it's just in real life, sitting down with your physician, and I'm not anti-medication and I'm not anti even conventional medicine, because I do feel that in emergencies, it's life-saving. But there is a point where what we're doing is decreasing quality of life more than doing nothing. And because of that, and because it's so common to just add medications, and most people never deprescribe a medication. So whatever, something, you start 1 medication in your 30s, maybe 2 more in your 50s and 60s, maybe 6 more and none of them have ever been taken away. Right. So it's just cumulatory. So my blog post was to say, some of those maybe were just for a little while and maybe don't serve you as much now. And maybe we should deprescribe some of them.
Right. When I read your article, I was so concerned because my husband is very sick. He has a very severe case of COPD, and it was actually life-threatening. He had an episode. And so they put him on all these medications. Yeah. Fortunately, he was not on anything before. So it wasn't
confounded by a bunch.
Yeah. Right. But now they keep adding stuff. Now, fortunately, this one new doctor is taking a couple of things away. So I feel better about that. But how many people are in that situation? And nobody ever talks about the other things that you could be doing, like grounding, maybe, to make you feel more energetic.
And that's the other thing, too, is even so when we treat with medication, I think it can be definitely helpful and even life-saving. However, we're not boosting that person's innate health. We're trying to fire hose out the issues, which is good. Do that. But we need to add things to boost your innate health, because if you're not eating, say you don't get any nutritional components to make the neurotransmitters you need, I don't care how many medications you go on, you're not making them, right? So we have to look at nutrition and do some supplements. And with grounding, like if I'm not sleeping at night and I'm never in the calm alpha brainwave patterns and I'm always in this frenetic state, I can go on a lot of neuroregulatory medications, but I'm never just naturally boosting my own function of my brain with grounding. So exactly what you said, that's a phenomenal point, which is even if those are necessary, it is worthwhile to actually boost our health, no matter how sick we are, if that makes sense,
Yeah. Yeah. Like diet and exercise. And even if you can't put your feet on the ground, at least get fresh air, something like that. So we've talked about sleep. One thing besides grounding, do you have any other recommendations to help people sleep better? Because that, of course, is a huge risk factor for dementia, which you mentioned.
Yes.
How do we boost that without sleeping pills?
Yeah, it's tough. And sometimes there is a role for sleeping pills, especially short term. But sometimes people need sleep so much that honestly, sleeping pills do increase quality of life because, so it just has to be an individual. So I don't want to go against saying people need something for sleep. However, there are things you can do starting from the minute you wake up till the minute you go to sleep that boost your chance of getting a good night's sleep. And something that might be reassuring to people, because I always lay in bed and I'm like, I have to, and then that doesn't work, right? But I went to a conference specifically on sleep, and they said, when you're laying awake in bed all night looking at the clock and thinking you're getting no sleep, but you have the, EEG electrodes on, guess how much you're actually getting restorative sleep? Can you get, like, if you think you're up all night, it's actually 70% of the time.
Really?
70% of the time your brain is going in and out of sleep. It's not the long restorative 90-minute sleep cycles, but That's what I remind myself when I have a sleepless night. I actually rested. I had brain rest for 70% of that time, even though for the 30% I was freaking out. And so it's okay. It's okay. And honestly, having a bad night's sleep or even a long term of bad nights of sleep, it increases your sleep pressure for the next night. So I always try and remind myself I'm only one night away from getting a good night's sleep. Because even if I'm just pitiful and I haven't slept in so long, it increases the likelihood I'm going to go to sleep tonight. So I go in with a good positive attitude. And then right from the beginning of the day, there's things you can do. It is really important to get light on your face in the morning hours. And it's equally important to move your body in the morning hours. And so when people are after work exercising, because that's the only time they can exercise, they're not going to sleep well. You cannot rev your body up, stimulate your body, and get your cortisol pumping at 7 p.m. in a spin class and then think you're going to sleep. I mean, you can if you're so exhausted, maybe you're a good sleeper, but if you're a bad sleeper, that is not a good idea. Even if you have to wake up so freaking early, if you're going to exercise, which everyone needs to move their body, it's got to be in the AM hours. So light first, then I think moving your body in some way, even if it's on your lunch break, but just not in the evening, not after work, nothing after dinner, nothing after dinner. Also, what you eat in your eating pattern spikes your cortisol. So this is hard to do, but if you can eat your biggest meal in the morning, your medium meal in the lunchtime, and your smallest meal at dinner, and or at least, even if you can't do that, even if dinner is your favorite meal and it's bigger, no snacks after dinner, because every time you eat and put any snack in your mouth, you're bumping your cortisol again. And cortisol is sort of opposite of melatonin. So if I'm bumping my cortisol, my melatonin is just sinking. So what you want to do is, like at 6 o'clock or whatever it is, stop eating so that you can let your melatonin naturally rise and take over, because that's the hormone that governs us at night, whereas cortisol should be during the day, but we a lot of time bring cortisol into night. And then there's tons of supplements that can help. And there's also topicals. So like magnesium is a natural muscle relaxant. So if I take magnesium supplements, which I do, and then this is what I do if I really can't sleep and I'm having that night where I'm tossing and turning and I'm trying to say 70% sleep, but still not enough. I get up and take a hot bath, and I put so much Epsom salts and magnesium salts in that. So it's a muscle relaxant, and the warmth, it will make your body relax. It typically helps me drop out of my headspace. And I even drink a magnesium drink called Calm. There's a lot of different magnesium powders, but that way I'm getting some magnesium in me as well. And then I also take a supplement that has L-theanine in it. The supplement I like is called Gabatrex. It's chewable. And the reason I like it is I can keep it on my bedstand and not have to get up and get water. So I'm right on the edge of sleep, but my mind's spinning. I still can chew that and then just go to sleep. So there's neurotransmitters that you can just use to kind of be inhibitory to your brain in a natural way, though, in a nutritional way. And I'm sure there's others I'm just not thinking of off the top of my head. The one thing I will say is people taking melatonin, which I do take melatonin as well. People say I take melatonin and it doesn't work. You have to take it when the sun's going down. That's when your melatonin naturally rises. So even if it's 5 p.m., unfortunately, or 6 p.m., when you're not going to go to sleep until 9 or 10, take it when the sun's going down. That is your body's cue to start hibernating. So if you wait until 9 p.m. thinking you're going to be dead asleep by 10 p.m., it doesn't affect you. It hasn't prepped your body for bed. And then we can go into other things like blue light blocking glasses and decreasing the EMFs in your bedroom, because if you're in an electrical field, that's stimulating to your brain just in the opposite way how the Earth's natural electrical field, which is a DC energy, is very calming to your brain and centering. But an electrical field, a man-made AC energy electrical field, is incredibly stimulating and disturbing to your brain. So even just moving your lamp 2 feet further away from your bed and making sure you don't have a cord running under your bed. And even I really love it when people turn the breaker to their bedroom off at night, if they can go that far, not having charging your cell phone in the bathroom or something a little bit further away and turning it on airplane mode, just decreasing the electronics that are near you. I know with COPD, I don't know if your husband does a CPAP machine. Does he use a CPAP machine?
No.
That's a little more difficult, but you still can get longer tubes so that the machine itself is further away. And so there's a lot of modifications you can make to make at least your bedroom, because we can't really modify most of our life, unfortunately, but at least your bedroom should be a very much EMF decreased, if not EMF free zone.
So on top of eliminating what you can out of your bedroom, we turn our Wi-Fi off in the property at night. But even with all that, I do have an EMF meter, and there's still all kind of stuff going on. So putting using a grounding device while you're sleeping, would that help?
Oh, I mean, definitely grounding would put you in a healing state, even in the midst of EMFs. It will not take those EMFs away, but it will boost your own health. But it won't take those EMFs away. But we do know that it's still a good idea to ground even in EMFs, because there was this important study in a NICU on premature babies, and they were grounded in an incubator because they couldn't regulate their body temperature. You know, they had feeding tubes, all that stuff. So they had a power strip like an inch from their little baby heads, you know, like just, but they needed it to, I mean, sometimes bad outweighs the good, and they needed to stay warm. They needed to have bright light. They needed to be monitored, their heart rate and everything. And a lot of them had, you know, feeding tubes and all that stuff. So even in that dense EMF field, when they were grounded, their vagal tone improved and they had improved markers of health. So I try and remember that when I get too crazy with like measuring, you know what I mean? Like, it's still good to be grounded. I will say that I am very concerned about the overlap between artificial EMFs and natural EMFs. And so I do have a special ground cord that is shielded. So it protects, if it's going through an electrical field, it will shield that ground connection and keep it pure. So it's called the pure ground cord. So if you are concerned and you think there's electrical field still in your room and you're grounded, I would recommend using that pure ground cord.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Can we find that on your website? Because you have some amazing products.
Yes.
And
Yes.
yes, so we can find that on your, awesome. And I will make sure that your website links to everything is on your, on our show notes. I also have to talk about creativity, because you are an amazing artist. And for the people who are watching this on YouTube, you're going to be seeing some of Laura's artwork. What does that do for us? Being creative and opening up our heart space to creativity.
Creativity. And I always try and think of it from a medical study point of view, but doing something meaningful. And specifically because we're talking about brain health, there has been legitimate medical studies showing when you are doing something meaningful, your brain works better. Functional MRIs show that there is more activity in your brain when it's something that means something to you. And not only that, but those same participants doing something that they were like motivated and curious about and something was meaningful to them, then also had boosted memory from it. So they remembered the experience better, and not just what they were doing, but ancillary things like, oh yeah, and I remember your brain works better when something's meaningful and creative to you. So yes, that is definitely a part of brain health. And we have other studies that kind of hint towards that, as I'm sure you know, like just doing a crossword puzzle, taking a different route when you drive to work, you know, doing things that are a little bit different to keep your brain growing, and the neurotropic factors saying, oh, we might need new connections still, we might need new growth still, instead of it just shutting down as we get older. So the newness is part of it, but I do agree with you. I think it's the creativity. I think it's the meaning behind it. And now we do have medical studies that show that. And what's interesting, and I'm going to plug grounding back into this, because there have now been studies that show that electrical pulse, the Schumann resonance of the earth, which I call a double heartbeat, that's what it looks like. It's just pulsing out. They have shown now that that actually syncs up with our brain in a meaningful way, and it's coherent with our brain. And the area it's coherent with our brain is that parahippocampal gyrus, which might not mean anything to you, but it might to you with the dementia, because that is the first part of our brain that starts shrinking when it's a very early indicator of Alzheimer's, because that's the part of our brain that provides meaning and context. So the earth itself is literally syncing with our brain and giving a little ping. And they've measured this ping, and the rate of the ping is just enough, and the amplitude is just enough that it does not interfere with cognitive thought. It's not gonna, you're not gonna be driving or doing something intense and all of a sudden the brain pings you, but it's just a subconscious level of meaning, orientation. And I'm sure this has something to do with how animals know to navigate on the earth and how they know seasonal and orientation, because when that part of our brain, like victims of stroke in the parahippocampal gyrus, they don't know where they are, and it's scary, or they lose meaning. Like, I might see that there's 5 women standing there, but I don't even know which one's my daughter if I have a stroke in that area. So it's the meaning and the context that makes that area very important. And that is the exact area that the Earth's energy is most, it affects our whole brain, but it's most cohesive in that area in the entire brain. So, you know, and you know this, if you go out to the beach, or if I go out and garden, whatever my version is of your whatever anyone's version is of what they enjoy outside, have you ever like been mulling on something and you're distraught because there's no answer and no solution, and you do that and you get and you're like, oh, or even if you don't get a solution, you have some kind of internal clarity, you've re-navigated, you've reoriented. So I tell people all the time when they're like, they work in an artificial environment and it's dark, and it's, you know, it's so depressing when you go to work and it's dark and you come home and it's still dark and you just lose all context. I don't even freaking know what month we're in, kind of thing, you know. you need to spend time on the earth. You will get reoriented, and it will not take very long, because this resonance that it has with our brain, right where you need it to reorient yourself and make things meaningful again. So if you just feel like kind of lost, or like nothing's motivating you, or you don't take pleasure in things that you used to, a lot of times what's missing is time on the earth.
Oh, when you just said that, when I was trying to find the title for my first book, I was struggling because, you have, well, what do the experts say? How do you, title a book to get people to interested in it?
Great.
And I was so frustrated. The book was almost done. So I go for a walk on the beach barefoot, and I stick my toes. And I remember this moment so vividly because it was high tide. So I had to go far up, and the sand there is really, really soft. And I was digging my toes in the sand, and the title came to me, Don't Let the Memories Fade. It was just like that.
Beautiful. That's so beautiful. You gave me goosebumps. That's amazing. Yeah, it wasn't a fluke. It was not a fluke. The earth was surrounding you and re-centered your orientation, and the things you were mulling on subconsciously, it gave you a ping. And that's so awesome. And thank you for that real life explanation, because sometimes when I talk about it, people, I don't know if they understand what I'm talking about. And that was perfect. Really.
Yeah,
perfect.
it just, when you said it, I realized that's what must have happened, because it was so sudden and I didn't have that title anywhere in my head before.
Right.
It just came right then. So I knew that was the right one.
Yeah. It reoriented you to, and gave you a meaningful insight. And that flash of insight comes from these, I believe, at least is helped from these pings. And when we don't go out in nature, I just think you feel it. You just feel apathetic, or you just feel nothing
Depressed.
matters.
Yeah. Depression. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Laura, this has been wonderful. I could talk to you all day.
All right. Well, here's my last one, is that something we don't think about that's our brain is bathed in is the cerebrospinal fluid, the fluid that our brain it washes, it cleanses our brain. When we sleep, our brain actually expands a little, and the CSF goes even deeper through, and it pulls out toxins, and it brings more oxygen and nutrients. And also with breathing, it's a pulsatile movement, and deep belly breathing can make your CSF kind of like wash your brain a little bit better. And our heartbeat does it. But you know what else does it too? Is the earth outside is a heartbeat. It's that pulsing of energy. And our cerebrospinal fluid is completely an electrolytic solution, right? The whole thing is instantly groundable, just like the ocean is just so grounded. Like adding moisture and minerals is the epitome of grounding. Just like how we talked about, if a tree is totally dried out, it's not really grounding. You can't ground through your hair, it's dried out. So moisture and minerals are the way to enhance conductivity. And that's what our brain sits in. And our brain needs the earth to get, so it's sitting in an electrolytic solution. And I really believe, and I want to see medical studies showing this now, because we do have medical studies showing the pulsatile movement provides energy. In fact, they have figured out how to use the pulsatile movement of the liquid, the CSF in your brain, to power battery operated neural implants. Like you don't even need a battery anymore. Like you can use the movement of your CSF to power that. So it's an energetic breathing of your brain. And with the earth's double heartbeat out there, having this electrical influence and having this cohesion with our brain, I feel like that, I just wanted to mention that we still need to flesh this out a little bit more, but I believe even the cerebrospinal fluid, not even necessarily the neurons themselves, is yet another way that the earth is really bringing our brain to full health. It's like a reset button, I believe. So the earth is resonant with your brain, your entire brain, but more specifically in certain areas. But the fluid around it also, since it's bathing everything, might be a way to synchronize it, is my point. So because it touches it all at the same time, it doesn't even wait for that millisecond for even a nerve impulse. It's just instantaneous. So I feel like the cerebrospinal fluid brings cohesion and amplifies the nutrition and the oxygen to the brain, and the wash and the turnover of the brain, like you mentioned. And then the direct grounding also does other things for the brain function, the neuron function. So I just think it's even more complex than we really even know yet. And it's just super exciting. So that's why I was excited to do this interview, because most interviews, and we talk about the health of the whole body from grounding, but no one has ever, that I've ever interviewed in the 20 years now that I've been doing, just on the brain. And I was so excited because the earth impacts the brain probably the most, because it's that and the heart are the biggest electrical systems in our body. So I was really grateful to be on today.
Oh, yeah. I'm so grateful for this. And we will definitely get you back on because there's just so much to unpack here.
Yes.
Thank you so much. How can people work with you when they're not in, where are you anyway? What part of the world are you
I'm in the
in?
Carolinas, but I don't, yeah, now I want to access people all over the world. So I have a lot of online classes. I have some free online classes. I have some online classes you can enroll in for specific things like PTSD or electrosensitivity. And I also have that book, which I think is a great starter because it goes through grounding what we know medically, but then it just goes through every season. How the heck can I get outside if it's so hot or so cold? Or, it goes through all these techniques. Like I said, like just holding a metal signpost in the middle of a city, you can get grounded. So if you're looking for techniques and a very easy read to get started, I think my book.
The Earth
I
Prescription.
the
Yes.
other Yes, the Earth Prescription. And then the last thing I want to say is please join my newsletter because that is another way just to get a weekly reminder. I always give one kind of hopefully positive, just easy to do healing tip every week. So a lot of them are centered around grounding. So it might remind you, oh, this week I'm going to do that. I'm going to try XYZ.
I
Good
love your
resource.
newsletter.
Thank you.
Yours is the one newsletter I read every week.
Oh, thank you. That's awesome. Good.
Yeah, well, it's
Thank
just, I mean, it helps me, but it also helps me help my clients because you have so many things that I might not have thought about. And so I really appreciate that. Thanks again, Dr. Laura Koniver, an artist, an author, and a beautiful person. And I'm so grateful for your time.
Oh, thank you. It was an excellent interview. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Brain Health Matters. I'm Kate Kunkel, and I hope you've enjoyed learning so much about grounding and its effects on the brain from our awesome guest, Dr. Laura Koniver. This was such an awesome interview. I've already chatted with Laura about doing a follow-up so we can share practical tips that you can use in your everyday life. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube or podcast channels so you'll be among the first to get access to all of this great information. I've put Laura's contact info in the show notes, so be sure to sign up for her newsletter. It's the one newsletter I faithfully open every week. And your help getting out the word is very much appreciated. Write a review or share our podcast with folks you feel could use some help with brain health. And thanks again for joining us. Until next time, remember, it's never too early to look after your brain, but it can become too late. Now is the time to start.
You have 86 billion reasons to go vegan, and they're all resting right between your ears. That's right, 86 billion neurons that make up the master controller we call our brains. And while they're in control, our lifestyle choices determine how well they work, and that means we must nurture and protect them. The best way to do that? With a whole foods vegan diet that nurtures not just the physical, but also the emotional, mental, and spiritual brain. In the vegan brain, you'll learn how whole plant foods can nurture the healthiest version of yourself, and, perhaps more importantly, how your choices can reduce suffering for countless animals and help create a more compassionate, sustainable world. The Vegan Brain's second edition also includes nutritious recipes and meal plans so that your journey towards a kinder, healthier future will be easy and delicious. Available in ebook format on Amazon.